Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast, presented by BetMGM. I am Matthew Michael Cox, one-third of the three-man weave. We are joined by Jim Root and Kai McKeon per usual. Back in our usual cadence here to break down the Wednesday, Thursday, and weekend slate upcoming as we are in the heart of the dog days of conference play, it seems like. Standard show slate will apply. Fellas, let's get into it. First off, as you're not familiar with the program, we're going to start off with the live dog of the week. Going to break down some potential money line specials from the Wednesday and Thursday slates. Do this every week. Let's recap how we did last week, and let's do it quickly because there's nothing to write home about. TCU and Pitt blew tragic leads in the second half, destroying any chance in a money line special hit there. And I think we had a few other ads, fellas, that did not go as planned. But it's a new week, a new dawn, a new day. Let's get to it. I highlighted my, what I would call six favorite that look like potential, good value money line plays, dogs in good spots, catching favorites that are a little bit vulnerable at this point. Let's start with start with Wednesday first, a showdown in Virginia. Mr. McKeon, the Hoos are hosting their in-state brethren Hokies, who are losers of four straight right now without Hunter Couture in the lineup. Mike Young's Hokies are kind of reeling, but hey, Virginia, no juggernaut themselves, 1-4 against the number in their last 5 games. You think the Hokies can go in to John Paul Jones Arena and pull this one off?
I sure do, Matthew. I think the Hokies are going to be very desperate to get a win here. Obviously, not a great start in ACC play. I think that's mainly due to Couture's absence. So I'm thinking the Virginia Tech Hokies can pull a little magic here, take down the Hoos outright. They've lost 5 straight in the ACC. They need this win like blood if they're to stay in the at-large conversation, in the ACC conversation. So I think they can hang around 7, certainly. Money line, I'm sprinkling.
Yeah, these games are historically very, very close, almost no matter the spread, but especially when both teams are very competent, as they are this year. Couture is expected to be back tentatively. We're recording this on Tuesday, tentatively expected to be back on Wednesday. That's no guarantee, but they're a completely different team with him in there. Arguably their best perimeter defender, the shooter that they run off all their intricate off-ball action. This team actually has some serious undervalue to them right now. So, Matt, I think there's going to be a worthwhile split your bet on spread because I think 7 is going to be too high. And then also a little bit of money line because there's going to be a lot of threes going up on that Hokie side. And if they get hot, watch out.
Yeah, no, they're really to make shots. As Mike Young says, we got guys that can flat out ring the bell. But obviously without Mr. Hunter Couture in there, that's one of their key snipers. I'd have to know he's in and healthy to feel confident there. Let's hit 2 more mid-major potential money line specials on Wednesday. The first is UMBC at UMass Lowell. The Retrievers going on the road to UMass Lowell, who was a non-conference mini juggernaut, I would say. But Jim are in the midst of some regression as they are 1-4 against the number in their last 5 games. However, they did smoke Vermont. So I kind of think this is a team maybe that just rises to the occasion. And certainly when UMBC comes to town, that'll be one of the top dogs in this league. And you could maybe see a potential repeat of that. Or are you still betting on the regression monster that's been gobbling up the Lowells lately?
I'm betting more towards the regression monster. They smoked Vermont, but they also lost outright at Binghamton, got blown out at Albany. Those are 2 teams outside the top 300 in KenPom. Like they just don't have the same juice that they had in the non-con. They played a terrible schedule, and now they're actually playing teams that are familiar with them. It's a lot of the same cast of characters as last year. I think they're going to see a lot more even games, and UMBC has some real offensive upside. They've looked really, really sharp. Been impressed with them so far this year. Jim Ferry's bunch. Honestly, the Vermont blowout raised an eyebrow for me, but it was a huge game from Alan Blunt, who returned from injury, got kind of inordinately hot from the perimeter. I think UMBC's got a great shot to upset them here, Kai.
I do too. I'm just done with Lowell in general. I was on Vermont against them, sandwiched between, of course, the Binghamton and the Albany loss. So just can't time this team. Didn't do well against them in non-conference play, but they have been totally ordinary since then. Their ATS records are normal, like you'd expect. They're not a juggernaut anymore from that perspective. I'll probably sit this one out. The spread might be a bit low, frankly, from where I have these 2 teams rated, but I totally believe UMBC can pull the win here, Matt. I'm just staying away.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the implied line of 5 going off KenPom, I'm sure it'll be, I'm guessing it'll be a little bit lower, but it won't be a huge upside in this money line play. But if you think these 2 teams are basically near equals, Don't believe in some massive home court edge for Lowell. I can certainly see some value, taking plus 150 or plus 160 potentially on the money line there. Last one I wrote down for Wednesday, Mr. McKeon, Missouri State heading on the road to Drake. This is a rematch, and we're going to get a lot of these rematches as we go through the later chapters of our Best Bets on Campus program. Got to look at that first game to see what happened. I think that usually can tell some of the story, or it can make absolutely no sense whatsoever. That's just kind of the rhyme and reason of college basketball. Missouri State already beat Drake at home this season. KenPom thinks they'll be catching close to 7 on the road in Des Moines. Do you think they have the juice to pull off the season sweep of the Bulldogs?
No, I don't. I think Drake. I think it's Drake's game. Yeah, Missouri State much better at home. They're 5-2 against the spread at home with a +2 cover margin. On the road, they actually are over 500, but it's a different team in my opinion, and certainly an angry Drake team that frankly just missed shots. They had so many opportunities in that first game to win. They blew it. It was like 52-49. So I'm not going to back Missouri State here tomorrow.
Yeah, Drake did the same thing last year at Missouri State. Couldn't make a single jump shot and ended up losing to them. Got them the other time. They got swept in the regular season last time, beat them in the conference tournament.
Tournaments, right now.
I think Drake gets them back here. I'm just not super high on this Missouri State team. They can swarm you defensively, but at Drake, I think they get their retribution on them, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's ugly, but I don't trust Missouri State to actually pull off a second straight regular season sweep of this Drake team that's veteran laden and fairly accomplished. They got some guys who have been around the block or two. A quick scan toward Thursday. There's 3 that jumped out, potential money line specials. Kai, any of these 3 pop to you? And I only chose one as a teaser for my ultimate pick here. The first, though, Georgia State at Old Dominion. The Panthers got white hot from 3 last weekend after posting like historically bad shooting numbers. So all of the regression came in one fell swoop over the weekend. I wonder if that continues, or is that an anomaly? They go on the road to ODU, probably catching close to 6. We have Rice going to North Texas. The Mean Green have been awesome, but Rice has been no slouch themselves. And if you look at the KenPom line of 12, you could be catching, 3-1 here on the money line, perhaps higher, depending on where that opens up. So I think there's some value in a very prolific shot making team offense in Rice. And then my favorite of the bunch is William and Mary, Bill and Mary, going on the road to Delaware. KenPom has us at 8, and I think it probably opened closer to 7 or 6 in the betting markets because Delaware has been bet against because of the injuries they've dealt with. I think Bill and Mary may be a popular dog here, but I still think they get the job done. That's my pick, Jim. Any of these 3 jump out to you for Thursday?
I'm taking Georgia State. I've been lying in the weeds waiting for them to show some semblance of offensive competence because I think Jonas Hayes is a good coach. And Dwan Odom came off the bench. I don't know if rejiggering the lineup kind of set them up better. But just the fact that they made shots, I think will build confidence for them. They were truly one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country, maybe the worst before that total explosion last game. I think they can get Old Dominion here. ODU, pretty solid talent roster. I like the pieces they brought in via the portal, but I don't perceive them as a great favorite. And Georgia State, like I said, I think is really rising up, Matt. That would be my pick here. I think North Texas smokes Rice, unfortunately.
Yes, I'm back, by the way, guys. I had internet issues, but I'm back. That's behind the scenes podcast stuff. Jim, I agree. North Texas won by 33, 23, and 18 last year against Rice. They had their number, and Rice just survived an overtime game with UTSA. They're a tough team to really trust. I understand it makes them kind of an attractive variance play, but not against North Texas. I like Bill and Mary personally. They impressed me by beating UNC Wilmington outright. That shocked me. And if Jameer Nelson's still out for Delaware, they can frankly be beaten by anybody. You just saw them lose Northeastern after getting up pretty big in that game. So Bill and Mary can get it done, and they'll be a decent-sized dog as well. Georgia State, no play for me on that one, Matt.
Yeah, William Mary already beat Richmond this year, too. It's basically a fringe top 100 team in KenPom. They can certainly knock off Delaware, and what's not going to be a pretty tough travel spot there. So, yeah, that's my only pick of the Moneyline Special segment. Jim, Kai, quick recap of your endorsements for listeners.
Oh, I'm getting greedy, Matt. I'm going with 4 here.
Yeah, 4.
So I'm with you. I'm UMBC, Georgia State, Virginia Tech, taking a swing on all of them. I'm also adding Stephen F. Austin on the road at Sam Houston on Thursday, getting 8 points there. I think SFA is really undervalued right now because they were just wrecked by injuries. There were points this year where they had 7 healthy scholarship players, but basically everybody is back now. They've got size, they've got depth, they got better guard play. I think between Sam Houston and SFA, you've got a lot of familiarity going back to the Southland days. They played each other year after year after year. I think that leads to a close game. So I'm going to split my bet here, take some +8. Well, if that's what it is, maybe it'll be a little lower because they're healthier, but I'll take +7 if that's the case. And then a little bit of money line because I think it's just going to be kind of a grueling rock fight between two very familiar foes.
I dig that angle, Jim. But boy, is Sam Houston good. Those Bearcats, man, they got the juice. I was also on SFA against Southern Utah. They blew a lead, ended up not covering. I wasn't thrilled with them. So I'm just sticking with Bill and Mary Matthew and Virginia Tech against Virginia.
And I'm just taking half of Kai's portfolio with Bill and Mary. So put all my eggs in the tribe basket. Let's go, Dane Fisher and company. Let's get it done. All right, we move on to section number 2 of this presentation. It's going to be a quick one because at this point in the conference season, there are not many ripe pickings for what we call blowout city, looking for ripe opportunities to bet teams at large numbers. But man, the one I saw that popped out as I hit Fan Match and scrolled to the bottom of KenPom's thrill score page, there was Old Hartford sitting there going on the road to Morgan State as an independent, not a conference game because they are not in a conference this year, Jim. KenPom has this at -17. Morgan State is laying 17 points to a D1 basketball team, and that is Hartford. But Hartford has been an absolute calamity, as we all predicted. I guess the question is, how low can Hartford go?
They can continue to go lower. It appears they all they're doing right now is playing teams who are mid-league play, and this game shouldn't matter at all to them. And half the time they've got familiarity. They're teams they've played in the non-con, and they're still getting pasted. Lost by 25 to UMBC. Didn't cover against St. Francis or Sacred Heart. Didn't get killed in those, but they did already play Morgan State to a 7-point deficit. But I just don't buy this offensive system at all. Hartford lacks talent. Key piece Jared Kimbrough has been out, missed last game. Easily their best front court player. You take that away, and they just go further and further into the lack of Division I depth that they have. I don't love it because Morgan State could sleepwalk through it, but just fading Hartford. I think they're 5-11 against the spread this year. Why not get against that squad?
Yeah, that first game was weird, that matchup. Morgan State got up 15-2 on Hartford, and then they let up like a 20-9 run. It was bizarre. Hartford hung around. It was at their place. Certainly not a lot of home games for that team, so maybe a little bit of extra juice there. I think Morgan State's really good. And in the non-con, they took Loyola Marymount to overtime. They had some pretty good showings against some much better competition, and they're rolling in the MEAC right now. Impressive win over North Carolina Central. Impressive blowout of Coppin State in their last game. I think Morgan can cover this game against Hartford.
Yeah, it's a terrible spot because they have to go to Howard this next weekend, which is going to be a big game for them as they try and solidify their MEAC top of the totem pole presence. But yeah, I mean, Hartford's Hartford, and you guys kind of spelled it out. It's just there's basically two D1 players on this roster, and Kimbrough's out. That leaves basically Briggs McLean and a bunch of nobodies. Sorry to put disrespect there, but just got to call it what it is. Okay, now we're going to break down the power games of the week. We had a trifecta picked out for Wednesday. We're going to be homerish for you two as Mizzou alumnuses. That's not a word, Mizzou alumni. You will be hosting Pig Suey, Arkansas on Wednesday in a little rematch from a very competitive bout you guys put up at Bud Walton Arena. I know that Arkansas has not really fallen off. It certainly had some turbulence the last couple of weeks, and that may not look as impressive as a performance as I think it did at the time, but I still came away very impressed with Mizzou's ability to go into a hostile environment and play well. Now do they get revenge back on home ice, Jim, at Mizzou Arena?
They sure do. I actually really like this spot for the Tigers. Arkansas has struggled mightily on the road. They've struggled mightily against zones. This is going to be a raucous atmosphere, and Mizzou will zone. They're going to throw it at them. They're going to mix it up. They did a lot in the first game. Unfortunately, Arkansas just hit a ton of mid-range shots down the stretch. Devo Davis, Ricky Council got into that 12 to 18-foot area and couldn't miss, frankly, during the second half. But I thought the plan was good out of Mizzou. First half really slowed them down, kept them out of transition. If Arkansas can't get to the rim, they really struggle to score, and they prefer to get to the rim in transition. I think Mizzou's going to do a good job of packing it in, taking lessons away from that first game. And if the line is right around pick, all you got to do is select the winner here, Kai. Mm-hmm. I like the Tigers getting right at home.
Jim, I like our Tigers too. Game 1 up 25-8. They were up 15 towards the end of the first half, and Arkansas came back a bit. Also, frankly, and not to complain too much, but the reffing was pretty tough down in Arkansas. The Hogs got to the line probably a little bit more than they should. Ricky Council certainly hit a ton of mid-range jumpers that he's capable of hitting, but still maybe not the one that's sustainable over a long sample size. And this is a get-right game from Mizzou, right? They just lost twice in a row on the road to A&M in Florida. They shot 10 for 48 from 3 combined in those 2 games.
Barf.
They're going to swing back up here. It is going to be a crazy home crowd. I'm going to be in attendance, so that's worth like 6 or 7 points.
Folks, so, yeah, factor that in. Get that in the handicap.
Factor that in. It's going to be an awesome environment. I can't wait, Matt. I do like the Tigers here.
Yeah, this Arkansas thing is starting to unravel. Like, you watch that Vanderbilt loss. First of all, giving up 97 points to Vanderbilt was not a good omen. But then just the kind of petty. There's a ton of texts, whiny, chippy. It felt very, we've seen Musselman do this before, right? If he's your guy, you love him. If he's not, it's certainly easy to hate him. And it was easy to see why he can be a good villain for opposing SEC programs. I think it just feels like a team that's starting to kind of fall apart with 2 key pieces stripped from their moorings there with Nick Smith and Trevion Brazil. So
yeah, that's why I think it's different, Matt, because you go 2 years back, early January, they lost 4 out of 5. Last year, from mid-December to early January, they lost 5 out of 6. This year, they've lost 4 out of 5. But I think it's different because of the personnel limitations. If you told me Nick Smith was back tomorrow, I'd say, you know what, they're going to be just fine. But I still have some concerns because you take out that lottery talent and you take out their most versatile big and their total lack of 3-point shooting. Yeah, it could be an issue.
Yeah, even Anthony Black's been a little bit erratic the last couple of games. It just doesn't have a lot of help around him. We're going to Big 12 country for Bedlam, Mr. McKeon. Oklahoma State hosting Oklahoma for our second of the 3 power game features on Wednesday. I see you're ugly and I raise you uglier is kind of what I feel like this game turns into. The key thing here personnel-wise is, does Moussa Cisse return for Oklahoma State and how effective is he? Just an absolute pivotal piece on both ends for this Oklahoma State team. Defensively, they need him up front. Offensively, man, they really get stuck in the mud. I think Oklahoma just simply out executes them here. What are you looking at?
Yeah, OK State's won 3 of the last 4 in this matchup. They tend to have, I guess, Oklahoma's number, so to speak. But without Moussa Cisse in the lineup, if you don't know his status, I think it's hard to back Oklahoma State, despite them being pretty competitive for a while against Texas, against Kansas State without him. Didn't do very well against Baylor. I don't trust them to win games, especially against a well-coached team like Oklahoma, especially one with a guy in Tanner Groves who can certainly take advantage of Oklahoma State inside and from the perimeter. I can't back Oklahoma State without knowing his status, Jim.
Yeah, the weird thing, I almost think the lack of Cisse has hurt them more offensively, even though he is a totally dominant big. In Big 12 play, they're still leading the entire conference in 2-point percentage defense, but they're also dead last in 2-point percentage offense. They don't have his vertical spacing where they're just kind of, he's rolling down the lane like a freight train on a pick and roll, and they can just toss it up and get a free dunk or dump it off to him in that dunker spot and get a free layup or dunk. They've really lost a route to easy offense that way. And without that, against a well-coached Oklahoma team that's going to go under every ball screen, force you to shoot over the top, I don't like that matchup for the way this Oklahoma State team is made up, Matt. So I would lean towards Boomer Sooner at home, and I think we're going to, Boomer Sooner on the road. And I think that's going to be the way this one trends without Cisse.
Yeah, we'll see what that line opens. I bet it's close to pick. I think Ken Palm's got it at -2 Oklahoma State, but I bet it trends closer to pick them, just given, I think, the general sentiment in the market surrounding Oklahoma State without Cisse. But again, if he returns, that kind of changes the script there.
And he has like been dressed for 3 straight games.
Right, he's close to returning.
Really
I think
gone through warmups, and he returned from his injury in the game he suffered it. So it always seemed like he was close to coming back, but he dresses and then just like stands under the basket during warmups. So you should know early if he's going to play.
Yep. All right, last one. Definitely the best game on the Wednesday slate. Marquette hosting Providence. Everyone remembers, well, if you're a diehard fan, you remember the instant classic first meeting between these two this year. Double OT thriller at the venue formerly known as the Dunk. Now it comes back to the Midwest, to Milwaukee, where Marquette has been invincible, although they've been pretty damn near invincible everywhere they've been this season. At some point, Marquette's going to be overvalued, in my opinion. And I think this is actually a good spot, Jim, to do the play Shaka as a dog, except you play Cooley as a dog against Shaka on the road. So I know Providence won that first game at Providence. I actually think they compete here again on the road.
Yeah, these are two of the best 5 underdog coaches in the entire country by splits. Now you have only one of them can be an underdog. That's the way the line works. And it's going to be Cooley on the road. They did get that huge W in double OT, despite Tyler Kolek had like a personal 9-0 run in overtime there to get them close. Maybe it was a 9-2 run. Interestingly, though, last year, the meeting at Providence was really close. 65-63 Providence win. What do you know? They won a close game. The one at Marquette was a 30-point blowout. That was the one that like ripped down Providence in all the analytical rankings, where lose by 30 and then win your next games by 20 points combined, and kind of what started the whole luck-based and devalued them analytically. I think Marquette's capable of doing that. The top 5 Big East teams have all been awesome at home against other top 5 Big East teams. UConn versus Creighton. Creighton's held serve at home. Marquette, Xavier, Providence have all held serve at home against the bigger teams. I think Marquette holds serve at home again here, but depending where the number is, Mr. Cooley is known for sneaking inside that number, Kai, just like he did at Creighton.
Yeah, he did that without Jared Bynum, but I think that is a huge piece of this handicap. You have to know Jared Bynum's in. Providence without him is going to very much struggle against Marquette's pressure. In that first matchup, they turned the ball over. Providence grabbed offensive rebounds, though, and that's their advantage against Marquette on the other end. Some fun little factoids here. Providence right now in Big East play, the worst ball handling team in the conference. Marquette, number 1 in turnover rate in conference play. On the flip side, on that same end, Providence, the best offensive rebounding team. Marquette, the worst defensive rebounding team. So certainly advantages on both ends on that side. On the other side, you have the best offense in Marquette in Big East play going against the best defense in Providence in Big East play. It certainly is kind of an interesting force versus force, but without Bynum, I think it's Marquette's game. Even with him in the lineup, Matt, I still sort of lean towards Marquette here. I love this squad.
It's a great squad. And yeah, we've been talking about the in height mismatches they've been dealing with, but they overcome them basically every game. They probably should have covered at Xavier. Just 2 free throws sunk them late there on Sunday. There's actually a lot of good games on Thursday. I apologize for not getting to those, but we're going to focus on mid-majordom for our Thursday breakdowns. We pivot to our mid-major game of the week. Got 2 picked out for us. We're going to ASUN country for our first one. That's Kennesaw at Stetson, who's been a sneaky bottle rocket the last few weeks in this league. And Kennesaw's been awesome, pretty much start to finish all year. I think we thought they would be good. They're mega talented. Jim, battle for first place here. Stetson probably going to be laying close to a field goal. Hosting Kennesaw, yeah, at
Right. Yep.
Stetson hosting Kennesaw at Stetson down there in DeLand, Florida. DeLand, how do you say it? DELAND,
I think.
DeLand, in the land, Jim. What do you like here?
The land of the Hatters.
The land of the Hatters.
Man, I've been much higher on Kennesaw basically since I started evaluating teams in the off season, like between these two, but Stetson just gets better and better. They do not miss threes, 15th in the country in 3-point percentage. Their whole game is turn this into a half-court grind, and then we'll outshoot you. And they've done that repeatedly with much success. Kai, they're about as lopsided as a team as you'll find in the country in terms of a 52nd ranked offense, 322nd ranked defense. It's projected to be a slow game, but the efficiency is going to be off the charts. Kennesaw's offense is all about drive and dish, get into gaps, kick out the 3, shoot over the top. Stetson actually takes away the 3-point line pretty well. So I actually think Stetson has the better matchup angle with this one. And just the way they're trending, man, the way they've been playing, I've been so impressed. And Kennesaw, it's going to be a tough task on the road.
It's been a shocking season for Stetson. They were expected to be a bottom 4 ASUN team, and right now they're competing for the top spot. Kennesaw, on the other hand, more or less expected. They probably still have exceeded expectations, but less so than Stetson's meteoric rise. Interestingly enough, these 2 teams are right next to each other right now in KenPom, 176 and 177. Yeah. I think the difference here is, though Stetson has started so hot, I mean, I don't know if their 3-point percentage is sustainable. 41% in conference play, and they're also the best ball handling team in conference play. That's really taken them towards the top. If they have an off night, they're kind of screwed because their defense is very bad, whereas Kennesaw is pretty solid on both ends of the floor. They're not really going to make mistakes on either end. They're going to be rock solid. So I actually lean towards Kennesaw State here. I think you saw the cracks with Stetson in their last game against EKU. They got blown out by a very good Colonels team. I think they could lose this game as well at Kennesaw. So I lean towards the Owls here, Matt.
I like the Owls a lot. I'm with you. I think the 3-point shooting is much more sustainable. And Kennesaw, I think they actually have legit shooters. I think Stetson has a couple with Panzo and Brown. I don't know if I buy the others who have made shots at the rates that they have. And even Luke Brown shooting 52%. I mean, I know he's a good shooter, but he's not going to shoot 52% the rest of the year. So I'm with you. I think I'm a little bit of regression coming for the Hatters.
But how about Luke Brown, 60% in conference play? He was a 30% shooter last year at Ball State.
He is a very good shooter. I remember Ball State fans were clamoring for his debut as a semi-highly touted recruit out of Indiana. But again, I don't think even Steph Curry would shoot 52% for a whole year from behind the arc. A big showdown here in Colonial Country, my second mid-major spotlight game on Thursday. Jim, not going to be at Trask Arena, where UNC Wilmington has kind of carved out their own niche as one of the best home teams in college hoops. They go on the road to New York, headed to Hofstra, who's been awesome since they got Aaron Estrada back. This is for a battle for second place, as Charleston still has the mantle atop the CA leaderboard, but still a lot to play for here. Should be a fun one. Another game that KenPom has pegged as a -3, basically a coin flip on a neutral, but the -3 for home. What are you looking at?
Well, Hofstra was awesome until Monday. Martin Luther King Day, they got smacked by Towson, put up 47 points on 63 possessions, lost by 21. That was the kind of like eyebrow raiser. Like, what's wrong with Hofstra? What happened here? To me, it feels a little more like an outlier performance, just digging into the numbers. I don't think they're going to shoot 4 of 27 from 3 in another game. I just don't see that happening. That team is far too potent for me on the arc to do that sort of thing once again. And Wilmington, they got right on Monday, suffocated Elon to the tune of a little 8-point win, but they were big favorites in that game.
Yeah.
Didn't actually play that well, just had a strong defensive showing. I think Hofstra actually takes this one, Kai. I'm not willing to bet against Wilmington yet because, man, they've been almost invincible against the spread the last 2 years. But taking them out of Trask, I think, is rather important. That home court's been like super, super strong the last 2 years. And Hofstra, again, I think they're going to shoot the ball a lot better than they did on Monday.
Yeah, strange couple games for Wilmington. After the Charleston effort, which they came back and covered, barely lost that game, losing outright at home to William & Mary, and then not putting away Elon. Concerning, but I still believe this team is very good. And all I see right here is UNC Wilmington as a dog in conference play. I lean towards the Seahawks in that scenario pretty much every single time. I'll probably be on them, but I admit that Hofstra is very, very good. And I don't really like that they're off a major loss to Towson. Definitely some energy in this game for them, some high motivation to get right.
I like the spot better for Hofstra. They have a week off after this game, where this will be the third of a 4 and 7 game stretch for UNC Wilmington. I think those tend to take a toll as you get deeper into conference play. So something to keep an eye on. Maybe the as deep as the Seahawks are, I worry that might be losing a little bit of juice. And our not so favorite section up next, the Trash Man pick of the week. Again, conference play. Not a ton to pick out for this batch, but Northeastern versus Stony Brook jumped to me, and I chose it not because I don't think both teams are terrible. I just think both teams are weirdly tough to figure out, but also could be terrible. I don't know if there's one game I will not bet on more, if that makes any sense, than this game. Jim, do you have any read whatsoever? Because I certainly do not.
Well, they're both like always terrible for a stretch in every game they play. Like Northeastern will get down 10 in every game. Sometimes they'll fight back. Sometimes they won't. Yesterday on Monday, they did fight back and got a huge win over Delaware, which was rather surprising, even with the Blue Hens shorthanded. But man, Stony Brook will do the same thing. They've been shorthanded all season. Dean Knoll's been out for the entire year. They've had issues with Aaron Clark in and out of the lineup. Again, yeah, Kai, like Matt said, because of some of the absences, because of the in-game erraticism, whether erraticism is a word or not, it's debatable. I like to use it.
Sounds
but
like
the
one.
in-game volatility, we'll go with that. If I were to bet this game, which I don't think I will invest in the Trashman pick of the week, it would be live. And I would say somebody gets down 10 or 15, let's get on the other side and just hope that works out.
Yeah, game one, Stony Brook, 1 at Northeastern. So maybe a little payback here for Northeastern on the road. Game was ugly, less than 70 possessions. No one scored over a point per possession. Both offenses kind of struggled. The one thing I think that goes in Northeastern's favor here is Stony Brook is probably the only team in the conference, or one of the main ones anyways, that doesn't really take advantage of Northeastern's inability to handle the ball. That's been their problem since Tyson Walker left for Michigan State. They've been turnover machines, and Stony Brook forces turnovers at the lowest rate in the conference. They just don't do it. So you put that out, you take away one of Northeastern's biggest weaknesses, all of a sudden they look pretty attractive, especially trying to get a revenge spot here after Stony Brook beat them on their home floor.
Yeah, I think the revenge angle is notable. I just love my guy, Frankie Policelli. It's a bummer that team has been crucified with injuries this season. They just haven't had any chance to get any sort of momentum. It's why they were a great fade early on. They're not good now, but I don't think they're as fade worthy as they were earlier in the season. All right, to spotlight section. And we mentioned a couple of these teams earlier in our breakdowns, but we're going to basically talk about what I'm calling the conference killers, teams that are undefeated against the spread since conference play commenced. We have the SEC trifecta, we have the Westerners, and we have the under the radar low majors. Am I not so creative bucketing of these teams? Let's start with the big boys. Kai, Alabama, Georgia, A&M. Alabama, not surprising. Everyone knows they're good. They've been awesome. They've just been better than people think. Georgia, Mike White, I think we thought they'd be feisty, but man, they've been a mini against the spread wagon lately. Been Texas A&M, have they reversed course after a pretty dreadful non-conference showing?
Yeah, I mean, Texas A&M was expected to be a top 40 team by most people, ourselves included. They brought back almost everybody from last season, a team that just missed the tournament. So this ascendance, I guess, is less surprising than, say, Georgia, who, while we thought they'd be improved, Matt, you're right. We didn't expect them to beat, for instance, Auburn outright. For them to be 3-1 in the SEC to start. I tend to think Georgia and A&M start to conference play is pretty real, especially the manner of which A&M has beaten their last several opponents. I mean, they crushed LSU, Mizzou, and South Carolina, beat them by 40. So I'm pretty in on A&M ascending here. I think Georgia is much better coached and athletic and locked in. I'm pretty in on them as well. And of course, I'm in on Alabama, Jim, as one of the top teams in the country, top 5 right now for sure.
Yeah, Alabama rocks. They're like in line for a 1 seed at this point, and totally worthy. The curious thing with Georgia and A&M is I think they set themselves up for this ATS success by stinking in the non-con. Georgia really struggled with injuries. They had guys in and out. They had flu. They had everything you could have go wrong. And then Kyron Lindsey transferred, maybe a addition by subtraction in terms of chemistry. So they were set up to bounce up. And same with A&M. You lose at home to Wofford. You struggle in some of your bye games. The problem is beating South Carolina by 40 vaults them up the analytical rankings to a point where maybe there's not going to be value on their numbers anymore. I think they've maybe found their level. They're at 47th now. Before that game, they were 63rd. Like, you jump up 16 spots, that actually means something at this stage of the season. They had gone as low as 75th before they got into league play. So I think they've kind of normalized. Georgia, though, I think there's still going to be a little value on them because of the health, and they're not smashing the same way that Texas A&M is. They're just kind of covering comfortably and creeping up in. So I like Georgia the most of those 3 going forward against the number.
I think I do as well. Yeah, Georgia had a problem with beating bad teams by comfortable margins in non-conference play, Jim, because of the reasons you mentioned. Partly, it's just not a team that profiles. Mike White historically has never been a guy that just crushes as a large favorite. I don't have the data to back that up, but anecdotally, it's just not how his teams play. They're built on defense. They're not built to run away from you on offense. And I think that plays up well, but it doesn't play down well, which does give them value coming into league play. Kai, we're going to head west to hit on Santa Clara and Nevada, 2 teams that have not lost against the spread since conference play began. Santa Clara was a non-conference darling to start. Then they had a little bit of a lull, I would say, kind of toward the end of December. People forgot about them. The AirPods, Brandon Pajimski buzz sort of subsided, but he's still real, and this team is still real, and this coach is still real. What do you think about the Brocs going forward?
I'm a fan. I support them. I don't know if they're going to be a tournament team. I just think the teams at the top of that conference, your Gonzagas, your St. Mary's, even BYU, the way they're playing right now, are so good. And I don't think Santa Clara has many opportunities to get there. Nevada, though, Matt, your other team, they've been incredible this year. They haven't really gotten press that, say, New Mexico has in that same conference. But they've made basically almost the exact same rise New Mexico has in the analytical rankings. Started 132nd at KenPom. They're top 50 right now. They're 49th compare that to New Mexico, it's even higher than what New Mexico's done so far in terms of raising up the ranks. New Mexico started 138, they're at 60, and yet Nevada's not getting the press, and they're sitting here atop the conference in pretty good position for an at-large. I buy the Wolfpack. I know you do as well, Matt. It's amazing what getting rid of Jim, we'll say some chemistry issues last season, has done for this team.
Yeah, and they're not even like full strength. I think they thought Hunter McIntosh would be their best point guard, transfer from Elon, that had actually had a pretty solid career for the Phoenix, and he hasn't played at all. He's been injured all year, and they've kind of cobbled together that situation. Matt, I think you've said it's helped them. They've played bigger, and that's helped their defense.
And they're so long, maybe not having so long.
Yeah, super long. The difference is that New Mexico started 14-0, and Nevada didn't start undefeated. So the eye-popping wow record wasn't there, but they've been just as effective and maybe are nearly as in decent a shape as for an at-large. Santa Clara also sneaking competitive, but AirPods is rather important. I believe he sat out last game. You need to keep an eye if he's going to be out of the lineup. I think that's going to be an unsustainable run. He is worth $1 million to them.
Yeah, they're flirting with last year. Like, you look at the KenPom ranking, they finished 76th last season. Santa Clara, like probably the best team in that program's history. And this year they're up to 82. So they're basically right there. I don't believe that this team, even with Pajimski, is as good as last season's team. Last season's team had a lottery pick in Jalen Williams and basically a better nucleus, more an older nucleus. So just from that lens, I do think Santa Clara is a little bit of a sell. Nevada, I buy more just because of just the program history. And Alford's had success being an overachieving coach with lower expectations, right? I think he got kind of he's better in New Mexico, better in this current situation than I think he is in the, prominent spotlight at UCLA. So I kind of buy the pack.
Just one little thing for that Santa Clara thing. I think the spot Saturday where they go on the road to St. Mary's, St. Mary's barely won at Santa Clara. I think that's a smash. St. Mary's might win big, especially if Pajimski's still out.
St. Mary's is incredible. We talked about teasing that as like a potential, this is the year they beat Gonzaga in the WCC. Now it's like they're almost favorites to outpace Gonzaga. That's how good they're playing, up to top 10.
How about the AP poll, Matt? Top 10 in KenPom, but not ranked in the AP poll. What does that tell you?
I think the AP poll got it right, as they always do, Kyle. So we are we bow down to the AP poll and those esteemed voters who know exactly what they're talking about. Jim, last little twofer we'll hit here. Fairleigh Dickinson and Binghamton. Yes, we went way off the beaten path to mention Fairleigh Dickinson and Binghamton, who are flawless, unblemished against the number in conference play. FDU, new coach, new regime, decent transfers, terrible conference. It kind of makes sense to me.
It's a nice little formula for him. This has kind of been a little bit of a darling for me. I bet them 55-1 to win the NEC in the preseason. Didn't get a lot down on it, regrettably, but they're the only undefeated team left, and they've got this D2 core. Their coach and 3 of their rotation players, including their 2 best guards, are all coming from the same team, Stack, St. Thomas Aquinas College. And that continuity has carried over into the league. Like you said, an NEC that's super, super down. I think the fact that they have that kind of familiarity with each other, not a lot of talent elsewhere, they've taken advantage of it, and they have these 2 sub 6-foot guards at that level. The NEC, it doesn't matter if your guards are small. You're not going to get punished in the post or anything. So I'm big fan of them. Kai can talk about Binghamton if he wants. That's been a nice ascent from where they were, but I'm more enamored with Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah, I've been on Fairleigh Dickinson. I profited off them a couple times in the betting market. Best offense by far in the NEC right now, in a league not known for offenses. So they've been impressive. Binghamton, Matthew, is a team that's just come back to where I think most people thought they'd be, right? They started off as a kind of a dark horse, sexy pick to finish top 3 in the American East.
Them or UMass Lowell, right? Pick your cute sleeper.
Ton of experience, ton of guys coming back from last season, and they just were terrible to start off the year. They lost to Louisville and Maryland, Stonehill, got crushed by a much better competition, and now they're on the upswing. They just beat UMass Lowell. They just impressively killed New Hampshire, a team that's been really good so far in conference play. So yeah, this team's just coming back to where we thought they'd be. These type of teams, I think, are really going to be ones to target, teams that were expected to be good, and now all of a sudden you see this upswing, pounce on it, get on it before the curve hits the peak, we'll say.
Yeah, and they're getting John McGriff, the St. John's transfer back. Ackland, they got a couple other guys that have been in and out. Binghamton. I roster looked pretty good on paper. It was awful to start. Now it looks a lot better. And again, same DNA as Fairleigh Dickinson. The competition matters. So when you're playing a watered down landscape, it certainly can be another reason to be undervalued. So,
Matt, should we mention the other two undefeateds in league play, just so we don't have them like, hey, but what about my team?
Oh, did I miss? Ooh,
Iowa State undefeated ATS in the Big 12, and Southern, your Jaguars, Matthew, undefeated That's ATS in the SWAC.
I had them graded as one, each of them pushing again or losing. Yeah, let's talk about them. Southern's awesome. I called that. Code me. I'll beat my chest there. This is the year Sean Woods gets over the hump as he has been banging his head against the proverbial SWAC wall. Texas Southern and Grambling have had his number. So I think he gets over the hump this year. And Iowa State, yeah, I mean, what was there to say? I mean, the team's just amazing. Coach Otts and co at Hilton are just, they have that recipe going. And I don't think they finished the year undefeated in conference play. I'm not sure they're like how much more value or runway they have at this point. They're up to 13th in KenPom. But hey, I'm on them tonight against Texas. So I guess that means nothing to the listeners out there, but go Clones.
Yeah, just want to give them their due. I don't want their fans to come back. Hey, we're undefeated too.
And how dare you? It's a strong fan base. We're fans of both fan bases, I suppose. Quick final bet recap here. I'm keeping it tight to the vest. Not a ton of volume for Matthew. I mentioned the William & Mary moneyline dabble at the onset. I think Oklahoma gets Oklahoma State in Bedlam. And I'm with Jim on Georgia State. I haven't been lurking in the weeds with you, but I'm going to now kind of tail you as we army crawl into this pit of value that the Panthers will present themselves. So that's my three for Jim. What's your slate for the Wednesday, Thursday schedule?
Yeah, that's the hope, Matt, that Georgia State figures it out. They are one of my four money lines that I'm going to split with spread. Georgia State, Virginia Tech, then UMBC and Stephen F. Austin between Wednesday and Thursday. And then also I'm going to be back in my Tigers, Mizzou. I love that home spot against Arkansas and the matchup that they showed in the first game. And I'll join Matthew on Oklahoma. I think the Sooners get it done on the road, particularly if Cisse's out, Kai. But even if he's in there, I think Oklahoma's just going to be better prepared for that one.
Love it. In my live dogs, I'm going Bill and Mary. That's William and Mary for those at home. I'm going Virginia Tech as well in that section. I'm back in Kennesaw State in the mid-major game of the week against Stetson. I'm looking at Wilmington, but I'm not officially going to send it in quite yet. I think they might be a little bit hurt. Has me a little bit scared. So I'll roll with those three, Kennesaw and the two live dogs.
Oh, you won't join me on our Tigers? Come on.
And I'm joining Jim on the Tigers. We're going to building. Of course, I'm joining Jim on the Tigers. How can I forget Mizzou? MIZ. Hey, hope we get him as a dog, Jim. Yeah, ZOU indeed. Love it.
Call the Hogs. No, I'm not going to do that to you guys. I actually probably should bet Kennesaw as much as I pumped him up there, but I'll pass on that. Keep it to 3. And that does conclude another beautiful episode of the Best Bets on Campus show, brought to you by BetMGM, the Big Bets on Campus show, but they are the best bets as well, Jim. Please follow us on Action Network app, by the way. We're picking more winners than losers. That's all I'll say as I knock on wood to avoid the jinx juju. But again, same time next week. Thank you as usual. And thank you, BetMGM, for making this all possible.